plans and documents. Tishman Construction. Oh, they love to take calls, but they do not love to talk about World Trade Center 7. Richard Lee Roth, grandson of the architect, thought that my inquiry to wanting to know where the World Trade Center plans and specifications was funny. Oh, it was funny, funny, funny. He just laughed. I just asked. He just laughed. So funny. Funny, funny. War in Iraq, war in Afghanistan. Lots of people dead. Funny. Muser, Rutledge Consultants, they do what I do. Geotech engineering, environmental engineering, steel testing, consulting, and so forth. They didn't call me back. Silverstein Properties, they talked to me, but then when I announced what I was calling about, said, we'll call you back. Never called me back. Perform and support independently sponsored 9/11 investigations. If you think the government is going to raise money and spend taxpayer money to support an investigation that's going to indict themselves, think again. Including finite element analysis method surveys that are subject to peer review and criticism. I want to see your FEA. I'll show you my FEA. I want to see your model of the building geometry. I want to run some different simulations that you didn't consider. Take this column out, take that column out, take these columns out, then run your simulation. Put more heat into it. Put more hypothetical weight on top of it. Reduce the size of the members. Increase the size of the members, and on and on. Continue to ask questions with regards to the official 9/11 story trademark. Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all's time. I appreciate it very much. You can contact me if you want to. Thank you. And the question was how much thermites the pre-reaction, and then thermites the post-reaction, if I understand the technology, and how would it be applied. I don't know how much thermite, as one of my chemistry teachers used to tell me in college, enough. You need enough to complete the reaction. So I do not know how much thermite was introduced. With as much molten steel as we've seen, and as for as long as we saw molten steel, they had fires beneath the ground floor until December. I would assume a lot. Now, as far as your second question, and I'm sorry, I don't know how much thermite was used, although I do know there is strong evidence of thermite, that thermite was in fact used. Now, to your second question of how would you use the steel, I would put it at the most compromising slip angle, and that's at 45 degrees. Now, there is testimony of 45-degree cuts in the cleanup site. So if I were to try to bring a building down, I would place it at 45 degrees on the columns. Well, I would assume that the charges were ignited electrically, absolutely. I mean, RF's a possibility, but I would lean towards wiring the building and letting if this nanothermite was used, which is a gel form, then what would make sense to me was ignite it with some sort of electronics or ignition. I know high heat has to be initiated unless the technology has changed since the development in the late 19th century. But I would ignite it simultaneously. I would think so. And those explosions, you would think, once the thermite does its dirty deed, you think those explosions would be necessary to initiate the removal of the lower structural material from the upper structural material. Yes, sir. Okay, the question was, do we really need the plans? And the answer to that is, well, it depends on what you want to achieve. If I want to achieve an accurate representation of the building, then yes, and that's my intention, and that's my goal of my presentation, is to induce others to ask for those plans, because I believe they exist, whether they're microfished, whether they're stored electronically, whatever. I want those to fall from protected hands into public hands, because I simply do not believe that they were all destroyed. Now, yes, the backup is, can we, by conjecture and our standard practice of care, which we call our rules, can we recreate this building? Do we have enough to recreate this building? Are we going to use 3,000 PSI concrete and grade 40 rebar and 22 gauge deck and all that? Yes, absolutely. But my first choice is having the contract documents, because then I can defeat immediately the argument of, well, that's not a faithful model. You see, the building really had this or that, or you can't get what the building really had, therefore you'll never be able to know. So that's why, yes, I really want to strive and get other people to call and email and write and visit to ask for those contract plans and documents, because they're out there and we need them, and with them we can make a closer representation of what really happened. Things change over time, and those girders don't always line up. There's fit-up problems in the field. There are changes because bolt holes don't line up when you go to put clip connections in from beams to columns and so on and so forth, so stuff happens. And a lot of times building construction professionals they'll sin and ask for forgiveness after the fact. What that means, they'll do what they want to do, and then they'll shoot the engineer an email or call him and say, hey, I got in a jam, my guys have to finish, my bonus is on the line and all this is what I did. Either you bless it or make me do something else or punish me. And if the engineer and the building professional have a relationship, most likely the engineer's either going to say, okay, you do that, but you need to also do this, or okay, I trust you, I like what you did, what you did was fine, but it has to be put in writing, and that's why I want those RFIs. I want to see the anomalies. But yeah, we can make those assumptions, but those assumptions compromise the integrity of our investigation. The question is, how difficult and how long and how much would it cost to do a real 9/11 investigation? Because as of this date, July 11, 2009, we have not had a real 9/11 investigation, and that is a lot of money. And what we have to understand is, can we put this on the taxpayer? Can we expect the taxpayer to fork over all the money to do this when we're, knowing full well it's going to be a sham? How long? Years. How much? A lot. But what I want to inspire in others is to have the passion to know how to take the safe route, the only route from the 6th floor to the ground floor. Now, what we've been doing so far, using just one analogy, and then I've got to take it outside because I don't want to take up Dr. Bowman's question, but what we're doing right now is we're jumping out of the 6th floor. And we're making it to the ground, but we're getting hurt. And I'm saying, go down the elevator or take the stairs. And people are still jumping out of the 6th floor window because they want to get to the bottom, but they're jumping out the window. I'm saying the only way safe to the ground, and by safe, in my weak metaphor, is to get the public to understand what happened this day couldn't really happen. There's no way. It's impossible. The only safe way we can do this is with recreating the building with computer software accurately, making all the assumptions and predictions that contractors will make during the normal construction of a building in their standard practice of care, and then running a multitude of simulations from initial events, thermal events, structural damage, imagining lots of beams fell on the building, lots of extremely heavy beams, and then arriving after many simulations of how impossible it really is to get a structure like that to fall. Hope that answered your question. Thank you, everyone. If anyone else has any questions, I'll talk to you as long as you want to talk outside. Thanks again.